Good morning and welcome back to the Purpose Playbook. We are here again. We have another incredible guest. I am cold. It is -4 outside this morning, so I am wearing a hoodie. So apologies, I'm not smartly dressed like I normally am. Today we are joined by Ric Flo, and his story is driven by music. He's a guy who's grown up in the care system, and we're going to hear his story today. I've just been talking for 20 minutes. An incredible guy, an incredible story. So here we go. Hi, Ric. How are you?
I'm good, man. You said it's 4 degrees. I mean, my watch is saying it's zero. So
-4 here.
minus
So you're
four.
you're down in Brighton, so it's -4 here, and it's very cold where I am. So you're dressed in a t-shirt. I'm in a hoodie. Brighton's obviously a
Essentially,
warmer
it's
place to be.
lukewarm, to be honest. I don't need to turn down the bills are hefty enough.
So, Ric, take me right back to the start. Ric as a child, Ric in care, and tell me what that looks like.
So the way I initially got into care was more like child minding. Essentially, I know the term for it now because there's a few films that come out back in 2019. So uh, I got into care essentially through farming. So farming, which sounds weird, is a let's say phenomena where between I guess between the 60s to 80s, um, I'm an 80s baby. West African parents used to farm their children to white suburban families so they can make the most of being in the UK. So I was a part of that idea. Um, Now, it wasn't regulated per se. So unfortunately, I was with racist carers, and it was a weird one because you know it's not like I could. There wasn't Nokia phones back in the early '90s. I can just call my mum like, "Yo, these parents are not good enough." Plus, I was scared of my mum, so it was one of them situations where uh, I don't know. I was quite introverted as a kid. I didn't really know who to turn to. I just dealt with it as you do. I just dealt with it. I think that's where resilience was built. It's like, all right, cool, this is what it is. But luckily, I had a decent social worker that was attentive to realize that when I went back to my mum's in the summer holidays, uh, being in a council flat for the 6 weeks holiday didn't really seem right. Uh, but then going back to Bournemouth for school and just the home I was in, I didn't really seem like I was comfortable. I wasn't really saying much. So like, actually, I think there's something going on here. And then luckily, uh, about a year or two later, social services took over the situation. And then yeah, I had carers that were much more fit for the job. Let's say that. And then yeah, I went through 5 placements. Um, and yeah, luckily, let's just say, cut long story short, care got better as I got older.
Okay. So explain that to me because I've never heard of that farming. So is that based around money or is that based around
Nah, so it was a trend. It was a trend for African parents. Essentially, it was, imagine, my mum. Well, she didn't come out. She come out with her boyfriend, but they didn't have the support of like, oh, grandparents look after our kids as we go to work. So it was literally. It's interesting because it's in the last 5 years it's become more visible that it was a it was a yeah, it was a cultural trend. It wasn't
okay.
it wasn't like my mum was an anomaly. It was like a lot of
Yeah, yeah. More and
West
more you're
African
finding out more and more did it.
yeah, the ads were in the paper. You know, I
Mad.
think I think my mum found these carers through it may be word of mouth. Because I'm pretty sure they looked after some kids before me, even though they weren't fit for it. But yeah, it was just it was a known thing. I think it got phased out by the late '90s. Um, from what I've
And,
read,
and what and what did racism look like for you then? So like obviously you're a young boy, right?
yeah, well, yeah, I like to say I'm young. I'm in my 30s now, but yeah, I was pretty
No,
young.
but you were. What I mean is, you were a young boy then when you went
Yeah,
into that
8 years old. I was
family.
8 years old.
And how did you know? How did you know what racism looked like then?
Yeah, good question. I did. The thing is, I was in Hackney before I moved to Bournemouth, so my mom does tell me stories about when I was like 6. Uh, this wasn't really racism, but a white kid bringing a knife into school and then blaming it on me. Imagine 6 years old, crazy.
Yeah,
But
yeah,
yeah, I would say when I really noticed my color more so was year 6. This is light-hearted. This is not even racism, but year 6, playing kiss chase, and I used to be pretty fast, so I can catch up with any girl in the school. But I remember like I caught up with the girl, and she was like, "Oh, get away from me! You're ugly. You're black." I reckon it's so vivid in my memory that that was the first instance of knowing that okay, I'm different.
yeah, yeah,
And uh, although that would have been that's around, that would have been the same time of the racism at the home. Yeah, things about race, like, so essentially I put it in my first album. Actually, I put like a little skit to kind of represent one of the situations that happened in the house, because essentially I feel like it, the couple that I was with, they're quite dysfunctional, and I guess they're in their early 20s themselves, and it was almost like the racism was like essentially they'll be arguing between each other, and I just happened to be there. And I remember they had snares, so I was playing on Super Mario or whatever I'm playing on, and it's almost like just because I happen to be there while they're arguing between themselves, they'll be like, "What are you looking at? Go to your room, you little N word,
yeah,
you that bastard!" Like that happened in the house quite a few times. And it's just like it was just uncalled for.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
Outside of the house, and I've talked about this before to other people. I found it fascinating that use, like, let's say, uh, in regards to speaking about an Asian person, or the Chinese restaurant, there was slang that was used, racist slurs that were used that was just normal for everyone.
yeah,
It's
yeah,
like, oh, did you see that P word down the road?
yeah,
Or are you going to the P shop? You know what I mean? It was like it was normal. It was like it wasn't
yeah,
like
yeah, yeah,
whether you're like, I don't know, 8 years old, or an adult. So it just seemed like it was a norm. But yeah, so it was just one of them that, like, because you're just surrounded by it. And obviously it's not happening all the time. At school, you learn very quickly. You just have to stick up for yourself. You have to take people's
yeah,
legs
yeah,
out.
yeah,
You have to take people's legs out when you're playing football, whatever. It was a
yeah,
little bit rough, but it is what it is. But
yeah, yeah.
on the most part, I'm glad that I moved away from that carer, because, you know, my self esteem, my
Yeah, once it becomes normalized, it becomes harder, right? But
yeah,
what
yeah,
one of the things I took from sort of what you sort of opened with is like your resilience, right? Your resilience grew, but your resilience has grown from being away from your parents, right? You're scared of your mum at that time, so you didn't overly want to say, "Well, I don't want to be there. It's not nice,"
yeah,
and then you're dealing with that at home as well. So, like, your resilience from a young age as is sort of up here. And now,
yeah.
tell me about the family, sort of the social worker. What I'm finding a lot as I'm having conversations with people is like there's always these people along the journeys of anyone in care or anyone who's trying to do good things or anyone who's struggled, who sort of look at things differently and say this kid needs help, right? Which is one of the reasons we started the podcast. We want to talk to good people who notice things about young people and sort of move them away. So this social worker, she's moved you out of that house into different families, and as you've got older, like you said. So tell me what them families look like growing up.
Yeah, I'm lucky that I had a few social workers that um, well, attended to my needs. The one of the, yeah, and I remember him by name, but one of the first social workers that I reckon planted a seed in me to kind of change the trajectory of the young people that I work with was a social worker called Claire Bennett, who, when she knew that I was like, when she knew I was good at art and I wanted to go to college, she contacted the local art college and said, "Hey, we've got one of our young people come to your college. What equipment is he going to need to fulfill his education?" And I don't know who the IT guy that she spoke to, but the guy was like, "Look, get him a PowerBook G4, which at the time would have been equivalent to a MacBook Pro. So top spec Apple computer. Get him that laptop. Get him a printer, scanner, this and that, Photoshop, and you know, I don't think I quite knew the value of how much all of that cost, but essentially, it's like if she didn't do that, what happened prior to that is that social services just gave me a computer that they chucked out their office. It didn't even have a CD-ROM. It didn't even have it like back then. I guess you do it all online, but it's like I wouldn't have been able to get through college. So just the fact that she was attentive and she contacted the college and made sure my needs were met, so I could actually fulfill my education, was amazing. And when it come to like later on me creating a record label, I gave the 5 young people that are part of the label a £1,000 advance. Yes, it was for their talent, but more so it's for the fact that look, beyond this pilot project,
Mm.
you have to show me receipts. You have to spend that £1,000 on getting the right equipment so you can do music from home beyond this project. And I feel
Yeah,
like
yeah.
the seed of doing that. Oh yeah, I mean the record label that I was a part of, fair enough. But more so, the way I was looking at it, I was like, actually, I'm thinking about Claire Bennett. I'm thinking about that social worker that made sure my needs were met so I could thrive with what I wanted to thrive with. So yeah, shouts to Claire Bennett. She was
Yeah,
amazing.
that and like that's incredible, isn't it? Like the person you remember, like your life could have been so different if she hadn't made that phone call or put that effort in to get that for you, right? Because that's essentially started your creative output. Um, but yeah, are you still in contact with her?
Nah, I mean, I think she might have followed me the other day on Insta. I've reached out to her a few times because I've seen her son. Her son's a DJ in London, so I've seen him a few times. Like, mate, how's your mom doing? Da, 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 da. He's like, yeah,
Yeah,
she's
yeah.
doing well. She's retired now, but she's always checking up on you on social
Oh,
media.
good,
She
mate.
says she's so proud of what you're
That's
doing.
so nice. Well, I think what's really important about that is I think social workers get a bit of a bad rap. I think their caseloads are a lot,
Yeah.
but like certainly through my 7 years of doing this, I've met some unbelievable social workers who will go that extra mile for the young people they're dealing with.
Mm.
So yeah, big up Claire Bennett. um, Amazing stuff. So tell me. That's happened. So tell me what that you got your stuff. You wanted to go and be creative. You had all the tools to do it. What happened then?
So I went to college. I studied graphic design. Or was it? I think it was art and design actually. Because I knew I didn't. I knew I loved drawing, computers, music. But back then I was like, I didn't necessarily know if I could do music. You know, it was like I guess I had smart, sensible carers that were like, you know what, I think graphic design that's more of a viable role. Keep on doing your
Yeah,
music, keep on going to your talent shows, but maybe graphic design is more viable. But that yeah, so I went to uni. I did graphic design new media, which is looking into like new realms where graphic design can go. So back then it would have been web design, animation, uh, yeah, video editing. So I did that, and then when I graduated, I knew that well, perfect scenario. I would have wanted to work for MTV, because I just wanted to mix graphics and music, and I just wanted to be in that environment. Um, but yeah, it was around. I guess I graduated around 2009, which would have been early days of YouTube, and it just felt like yeah, the kind of MTV generation is getting phased out, and
yeah,
things are moving forward with things. So then yeah, I got a animation job essentially because basically when I was just doing graphics, I'll be honest, in my first job, I was falling asleep. I, I'm an insomniac anyway, but yeah, that was a sign that that wasn't quite the thing for me. But every time I was doing photography or animation, I was fully awake. I was actually engaged, um, and so yeah, I knew I had to double. And plus, I felt valuable in the company. I felt like when I was doing graphics, it just felt like a cog in a machine. Like I wasn't really contributing anything special. But when I did animation or photography, it's like no one else could do it in the company. So that kind of gave me an insight. Like actually, this is a niche. This is something that companies
yeah,
haven't got in house. So then I doubled down on graphics, on animation. And to be honest, I had like not really it wasn't really a mentor. I had a friend who was a year above me, who, to be real, in the sense of business, was like, Rick, you know, a junior graphic designer gets £75 a day, a junior animator gets 150 a day. I'm like,
Yeah,
bro,
yeah.
double, yeah. I'm like, all right, cool.
Yeah,
I'm
yeah,
gonna
yeah.
double down myself, and I'm gonna get that because I know how to do it. So
Yeah,
that's what
yeah.
I've done. And then, um, yeah, about a year later, I got a full-time job, a salary beyond. I got in touch with MTV actually. I got on tangents by the way, but I got in touch with MTV, and to be honest, the job they were going to offer me was like half of the animation job that I got with another company. So I was like, nah, I can't go back. I'm just going to stick with this animation company. And then when I was in a stable position, I said to myself, I was like, look, there's three things I want to do before I'm 25. I want to make an album about my life. I want to go skydiving, um, and I want to meet my dad for the first time. So I did all them three things, and then I guess with the album, it's essentially why I feel I'm here now. Um, that it was almost like I was working day and night. Yeah, writing the album by night, working in the day. So I was just like, you know what, I need to go freelance so I can really see where this music's gonna go. And yeah, we can get more into that.
Nice. So just going back,
Yeah,
I what was really interesting there, I guess like was you wanted to feel valued at a company, right? So I'm the same. Listen, I need to be appreciated. I feel like anyone who comes out of the system or has dealt with any type of trauma needs that attachment, needs that love. Do you feel that? Do you feel that in your life? Like, do you looking at relationships you have, jobs you've had? Do you need that sort of gratification for what you do?
yeah, 100%. Like I'm in a amazing relationship now. I've got my wife, we got a baby on the way, and it's it's a blessing, that I've got a great life considering, yeah, everything in the past that I don't really like dwell on too much. Um, it's amazing, but yeah, to go back to your question, it's I guess I didn't really think about it like that at the time. It was just
Yeah,
more
yeah,
the fact that it's just like, to be honest with you, what although I had great social workers, when I graduated from uni, yeah, you relate to this. When I graduated from uni, essentially, I didn't have, I didn't have a house to go to because uh, they, for me to get a council flat, basically, I'd have to go back to Bournemouth. But I knew that with getting a graphic design job and whatnot, I wanted to be in London. So what I had to do, I had to go back to my mum's, and I was my communication with my mum wasn't great, but at the same time, I was like, look, she's got a spare room, and I got to do it. So to be honest, thinking back to them times, my kind of motivation was I just need to get out my mum's ASAP.
yeah,
that,
yeah, yeah,
that was all that was going through my mind. So that's why even the money significance and just knowing how I'm gonna
yeah, yeah,
pay the rent privately. That's all of that was on my mind because yeah, I learned a lot being at my mum's. Let's say that. Like I'm quite into self help and self development,
yeah, yeah.
and it came to me at a time in my 20s that I needed it because you know there was times where it's like she sat shouting in my face, and I like to think I'm a calm person, but I'm shouting back, and I was just like, this is not.
Not the environment I want to be
Yeah,
in.
yeah, it's not the environment that I want to be in. So I was just like, that was the motivation to just get out and then and get a job ASAP, and then yeah, the value. I mean, doing something creative for a living is yeah, it's a blessing, and I knew it was either that or my mum was offering me to be a cleaner at the place that she worked at, and I think in my early 20s that the main kind of thing that was going through my head was that if I go and just be a cleaner, even after like a 3 year degree and college, so like yeah, say 5 years after school, I'll just feel like a failure.
Yeah,
So
yeah, yeah,
more than anything, that was the main thing I was thinking of. I was just like, nah, I didn't go to uni for 3 years. I didn't. If anything, to be honest, it was 4 years because even I had um, I mentioned it a little bit on our questionnaire. I had a mental breakdown on the first year of going to uni. So it was almost like I felt like a failure on that first year. So like to feel like a failure again, I was like, it's not an option. So I just need to get out and actually be in the industry that I've been studying for. That was the main thing that was going through my head.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I think I mean, correct me if I'm wrong. What's really funny about the story and the cycles is like there would have been times where you were in the care system and you'd have wanted to be at home. The thing is, when you got home, the first thing you wanted to do was get out, right? So it's like it's mad how it works and how our brains work and how we're sort of like programmed to like, right, I need to get out of this now, whereas you'd have done anything years ago to be back there.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
it's good. Let's move on. So the three things: skydiving, and then you met your dad. How was that?
Uh, it was a weird one. I guess to be honest, he came to the airport with two little kids, which are twins, which are my brothers.
Mm.
So to be honest, I wasn't like I was gonna have animosity towards him, but any kind of I don't know, uh, like negative emotion was just kind of gone to a certain extent because I'm just looking at his two little
Yeah, yeah,
boys, and he's like, look, these are your brothers. I was like, what? And they're
yeah,
twins
yeah.
as well, and they're like 2 years old. So essentially it was closure.
Yeah,
Closure.
I mean, I had the same sort of thing. I spoke to my biological mother a few years ago, and my adopted mum passed away, and she always wanted me to speak to my biological mum and tell her that I was okay.
Mm,
And I found out I had a sister, and I found out that my dad, my biological dad, had other children, and it, it didn't make me angry because they had other kids. It made me angry that I wasn't the one that they loved. Like, do you know what I mean? Like I wasn't the one. But then I had such incredible parents that the anger quickly faded because I was like, I wouldn't be here in this situation now if I hadn't had, if I hadn't been adopted. You know what I mean? So it's one of them. So let's move on to the 12 years you've been doing freelance, what it looks like. So obviously you spoke about producing music. So tell us what it is. I was listening to it on the way in. It's amazing. It won't be off my playlist now. And tell me, I know you're doing some incredible stuff with young people in different areas around music. So tell me what that looks like. Tell me what you've been doing. Tell me what sort of the motivation behind helping the young people was.
yeah. So as I said earlier, like I did this album. The album was called A Boy Called Rick, which was inspired by a book called A Child Called It, which is about. Have you heard of that book?
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah. So what I found incredible about that book is just someone from the care system has basically turned their trauma into triumph, and the way that I connected to rap and hip hop was very similar. It's like it's turning a negative into a positive, and although I didn't have like let's say direct examples within rap, although when you start digging a bit deeper, you find out that let's say DMX, rest in peace, was in the care system, or the Game, Exhibit, like a lot of like kind of noughties, late 90s rappers were in the care system. They just didn't explicitly say it in their story, but back then I didn't really know that information. So I was like, look, this guy called Dave has done it in literature. It's like I wanna have the same ethos within my music. So
hmm
um, yeah, once I did the album, I didn't have a clue how to promote it, but I was at a point where my job, I was just like, you know what, I need to go freelance so I can have the flexibility of just, all right, promoting the album, but also, yeah, getting better work and having more flexibility will work. So then I've done that. And basically, I remember showing the album to one of my sisters, and she said it was depressing, um, which after you spend a year on a project, put your heart and soul into it, it's almost one of them. It's just like kind of deflates you. Just like, oh, am I supposed to be doing this? Am
yeah,
I supposed to be speaking so close to home? Especially as a teenager, I was never. I'm still processing my care experience. So I wasn't even thinking about doing something so close to home. I was just like speaking about trainers, girls, clubbing, whatever. So, but I was like, from what I learned from graphics being solving a visual problem. I'm like, this is a problem that if I was 14 and in the care system, if I could have some music that related to what I'm going through,
Yeah, yeah.
that's what I wanted to fulfill. That was the purpose. So um, although I felt I felt a bit weird of what my sister said. I was like, look, I know I'm not. I've had an epiphany. I know I'm supposed to be doing this. So I tried to get it to radio as you would back then. No one was really listening. And then there was there's the Christmas of 2013. I think it's 2013, not 2014. I was supposed to spend it with that sister. Actually, of all my sisters, I was supposed to spend it with her on Christmas Eve. She said she's just going to see her friend, and I thought, yeah, I'll be fine with that. I was like, it's cool. But then I remember it hit Christmas Day, and I knew full well I'm going to be spending it with myself, right? But just going on social media and seeing everyone like Happy Christmas and opening presents and being with their family, it made me feel like shit, to be honest.
Yeah, yeah.
Regardless of me understanding, yeah, why I'm by myself, I'm just like, raw, like I've done this project, I'm trying to do something positive, I'm trying to show people, regardless of your past, you can make a positive future, but I'm not feeling that energy right now.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Rather than putting myself in a negative space, running was my a kind of meditation. So I went out for a run, and once again I had another epiphany. And to be honest, running similar to being in the shower. I guess just feeling relaxed, you just get abundant ideas. So I had this idea.
I feel a lot more relaxed in the shower than I do running.
Yeah. Oh wow! So I was a runner at school. Sports day was my yeah, that was my thing. Um, yeah, I had an epiphany. It's like, look, this project really means something to you, regardless of the music industry. Try and get it to every single social services email address you can find on Google. Um, and I done that over the Christmas and New Year. I was just like sent it to about 100 email addresses. Within the New Year, like maybe like 10, 20 got back to me. But out of all places, most of them were just like, all right, yeah, great, Rick, we'll get it to our young people. But Swansea Social Services were like, Rick, our young people are choreographed the dance to your song Hide and Seek. Would you come up here to perform it? And little did I know, in the sense of marketing and getting it to the audience that would understand. Obviously, that's what I done, but I wasn't thinking like that then. I was just like, this really means something to me, and I just need to get it to people that will understand. And just seeing them young people when I traveled up to Swansea, just seeing them, their creativity, their joy towards my music, it was a feedback loop that I needed.
Yeah.
It let me know that this is bigger than me, and this is powerful. And going back to what you said about feeling valued, I got to admit that was a time when I really felt valued, because the thing is, sometimes you can, like, I don't know, with animation, it's like sometimes feel like a cog in a machine. It's like, all right,
Yeah.
I'm a creative cog in the machine, but I feel like a cog in a machine. Whereas, and I guess it's because with the work, it's like, I don't know, it's for corporate purposes, and I'm just using it to sell something that I might not necessarily believe in. Whereas with
Yeah.
music, it's like I spent a whole year putting my heart and soul into this music, and then you're basically valuing my trauma, you're valuing my life experience.
Yeah.
And
But
so
and you're helping anyone. Like what I've sort of realised is, like, I've had my own traumas, right? But when you come through it, you realise it doesn't have to be the same trauma. My trauma is different to your trauma, right? But actually, just by telling my story, it can help other people going through that, and I can relate to anything they go through, because ultimately people would have told me that I was a naughty child and I wasn't good enough and I was never going to be a success. What I can tell them is, you work hard, you have your visions and your dreams. It don't matter what you've been through here, you can do whatever you want.
yeah, 100%.
So so you, after Swansea got back to you, you've been doing assemblies, you've been doing workshops, you've been doing stuff for young people up and down the country, locally.
Yeah, and So, and the way that came about was because, yeah, the first year I was in Swansea, I was just performing. They're like, hey, maybe you can come back next year and help our young people write about their experiences. So I did that the following year, 2014. And basically, I wasn't leading the workshop at that time. There was like a kind of, let's say, a theatrical director I was getting involved. But there was, in the sense of how I went about the workshop, what I realized is that when the young people were speaking about, it would have been Fortnite at the time. So like Fortnite, Ed Sheeran, whatever, they'll jump in, they're all over the place. They were jumping for joy. But when they spoke about themselves, they were very closed. And I had imposter syndrome back then, so I was letting the theatrical director lead. Like, yeah, Rick spoke about his experiences. You should do the same too. But what I learned very quickly, well, I say learned very quickly. It took me a little while to like kind of digest. If I'm going to do workshops, how I'd go about it was that I knew that if basically the reason why they're so close is because they're still processing their experience. Like I'm like 25, like I've
Yeah,
spoken
yeah.
about it, I come out the other side. They're in it. So I was like, look,
It's
if I'm gonna
trust,
go
right?
forward,
It's trust. They need to trust you to talk to you and open up.
yeah. And it's like if I'm gonna move forward with doing these workshops, then I need to get them in the same space where they're speaking about Fortnite and just jumping on the walls or whatever. Like they need to basically it's not come at it directly. It's like let's go from something that they feel inspirational. Let's put them in a safe space where they can speak about whatever they want. And if they happen to speak about something personal, cool. But that's not the point. The point is giving them a creative outlet to speak about whatever they want. So I knew moving forward, that's how I was going to go about it. It's never going to be like, oh, look, I spoke about my care experience, you do the same. It's like, no, what are you inspired by? Football. All right, cool. Let's make a rap about football. Let's
Yeah,
make a rap
yeah, yeah.
about, so after I kind of realized that, I was like, okay, cool. I'm confident about doing these workshops because I can see it's making an impact. So I created Elevated Youth Limited, and yeah, did ad hoc workshops all around the country. And then just seeing talent, seeing young people that are talented, I was like, you know what, perfect scenario. Let's create a record label so they got a platform to actually put their music out and be represented. So then, yeah, back 2 years ago, Youth Music Foundation, they had funding for innovative ideas and a few other donors as well. I pitched to. So yeah, I created a record label called Mantra Music CIC, supporting 5 young people that have been in the care system with their music. And yeah, I mean, since then, there's a young person called Utilka. I say young person, young artist called Utilka Johnson. She's had one of her songs signed to UKF, which is like the biggest drum and bass label, I think, in Europe, let alone the UK. Um, yeah, there's a draw artist that made an album within that time, because basically when I had the first pilot of the label, it was only supposed to be 2 songs each. This draw artist has done a whole album that he's put out. Yeah, there's another artist called Soul, he's like kind of like a Childish Gambino, acting, singing. I think he's getting more into his acting now. But anyways, it's just like when I started my album back like 10 years ago, I never fathomed that um, I would have a label myself and I would be supporting the next generation of care leavers with their passion. Let alone, I haven't even spoke about my group, Jungle Brown. Um, we've recently, well, last year had one of our songs in The Gentleman by Guy Ritchie. We performed at Glastonbury, Love Box, Boomtown, overseas, France, Ukraine, like all sorts. So it's like all this from like something that it's not only trauma, obviously, it's been my passion, it's been my joy. All of this from just putting myself out there and showing the world what I'm really passionate about. It's all been a blessing, man. So yeah, I'm just grateful.
Yeah, mate. Listen, I mean, it's incredible what you've done. I love it. You've used all your trauma, your hardships, and you've used it to be creative and drive and help other people. Congratulations on the baby.
Yeah,
2 weeks away. Is that your first?
my first, yeah.
Exciting. Do you know,
Yeah.
boy or girl?
It's gonna be a girl.
Oh, nice, mate.
Yeah.
Nice. So what does the future look like for you, Rick?
Yeah, good question. So as I said, I've been freelancing for 12 years. But the creative industries, it's been so volatile in the past 2 years. So like in the sense of just being stable and being a provider for my baby, I'm going back to full time for the first time in 12 years. Full time animation. It's with a decent company, and to be honest, I was kind of headhunted, so I think hopefully, it's gonna be a good fit, good culture fit as well. So doing that, I will continue to do like ad hoc workshops, but to a certain extent, I'm prone to be like a workaholic that just works day and night, and I feel like
Yeah.
the baby's gonna be the project. So yeah, it's gonna. I, I feel if I felt like I was working day and night before, I feel I'm. This year's gonna be more of a phase of I'm gonna be. Well, I say this now. We'll see when I'm actually in the work, but
Yeah.
I'm gonna be fulfilled from a work perspective. Hopefully, in the 9 to 5, and then my passion project. It was music before, but it's gonna be the baby now, and I'm still gonna be doing music. To be honest, I'm releasing a tune very soon, but it's not gonna be as frequent as before.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah, I understand, mate. It's always family first, right?
yeah,
I
yeah,
think what's really important is like, what I've got from speaking to you and hearing what you've done, like giving back has been what you've done for the last 12 years. You've been giving back, and now you need to sort of focus on yourself and your family. Um, I have no doubt you'll be back doing the stuff, the workshops in future, but you've got to get some stability and contentment at the moment for your daughter coming along. So,
yeah,
mate, it's admirable. It's brilliant what you've done. I love your music. That will be on my playlist, and I'd love for you to come down and meet us and see what we're doing at some point. Obviously, not immediate future because you've got a lot going on over the next couple of months. Big life change. But
yeah.
thank you so much for coming on. Yeah, it's been an absolute pleasure talking to you.
Nah, same, brother.
Yeah, I mean, what you've done is incredible, and you've given me a lot of people today that I can contact and hopefully get on the podcast as well that have helped you. Um, but yeah, thanks for coming on, and
Pleasure, man, and for you to be Kelly of yourself, entrepreneur, and smashing it in the way that you're doing, it's incredible to hear and see as well. So yeah, right back at you, man. Like this,
no, I
yeah,
appreciate it. Thank you, mate.
no pleasure.
Guys, thanks for listening, and we will see you soon.